Hello Internet, and welcome to Tales from the Bottom Shelf, the show where I rationalize why I bought a bunch of board games that sit around and don't get played, and then I play those board games, and then I further rationalize why it was okay for me to buy them in the first place. Today I'm going to be talking about items 6 through 10 on the GeekList, which is linked in the little thing that is under the video, the description, whatever that's called, and yeah, so I'm going to talk about each of those items, where I bought them, or what were the circumstances of me deciding that they were worth my money, why they sat on the shelf for so long, and when I finally played them, what I thought of them. So, enjoy. Alright, the first game, or rather the sixth game on my list, and the first that I'll be talking about today, is The Builder's Middle Ages from Bombix and Asmodee, and this is one of their series of, I don't know if I want to call them micro games, but they're a series of small games that come in these square tins that almost stack really well, but then they don't. And the reason I got this game is actually this here. So, right here you can see this says Worker Placement, Management, and Optimization. Those sound neat. And if a game could deliver on that set of little promises on the back and be as cheap as this was and as small as this was, it'd be really cool. So I bought it. And it does not really do that. So I've got a text review of this up, so I'm going to be reiterating a little bit from that. So if you happen to have read that, then sorry, you're going to have to hear me talk about it some more. But The Builder's Middle Ages is like a mechanism from a game, and then there's some other stuff that should be there, but it's not there. So what you find yourself doing is just making these choices. Like you sit on your turn and say, all right, I have this many actions, potentially this many if I want to pay money, but that's really expensive, so I probably don't. I can get a worker and then put 2 workers on a place, or I can get a worker and put 2 workers on different places, or I can do these types of things. And I need to figure out what's going to get me the most resources placed where they'll do me the most good and complete these buildings. And you keep making those choices turn after turn, not really able to influence each other very much. You can draft something out from under somebody else if you want to do that. That might be useful, but it doesn't, I don't know, that's not the kind of interaction that feels very interactive-y-ish. And I don't know, you just do that until someone's reached the number of points that ends the game, and then you see who's got the most points, who did the best job of optimizing that thing. So it does deliver on optimization. That is absolutely what you're doing in this game, but it's also kind of all you're doing. And unlike in maybe the situation of Colorado and Zularedo, this sole mechanism doesn't really stand on its own that well. But with a bit more stuff built around it, I could see it being a really interesting game. I read on The Geek not too long ago that these designers were working on a sequel/expanded version of this game. I don't think it's an expansion, but I think it's just another game that uses some of the core from this. And I think that might be really good, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. So this hasn't like soured me on these designers. It's just that this by itself, I think in an effort to go super micro and super minimal, went too minimal. And so there's just not a whole lot there. So that's The Builder's Middle Ages. I'm not a fan of it, but I do look forward to seeing a game built on top of it if that's what's actually going to happen. Alright, game number 7 is The Castles of Burgundy by Stefan Feld. And this game I picked up because it was very highly recommended by everyone in the entire world. And then I got the game, and I had a game, and I opened it. And I said, this game is as ugly as something that is as ugly as sin, and something else that is as ugly as dirt. And then they have been stacked. And everybody that I showed this game to had a very similar reaction. Plus, it looks like that. Which, I don't know, do you feel invited by that? So I don't know, it's scary. It looks really like a lot of crazy stuff is going on. And there's not that much crazy stuff going on in this game, and once I actually got around to playing it, I liked it a lot. There are a couple of things about this game that I don't really like very much. The setup in between rounds where you have to replace all of the tiles and do a whole bunch of things like that is annoying. It's just really annoying and makes me think that like I want this game as an app really badly. Games that have that kind of thing where it's like, now replace all 57 tiles with their 57 Age 2 counterparts. I don't know, that's not the type of thing I want to be doing very often. And then the little buildings, like, I don't know, I just got new glasses, so my vision is a little bit better than it was. But you have all these little building tiles, and they're all like little white buildings with blue roofs. And if you're playing with the full complement of players and you have to look at those from across the table, it's not impossible to make. It's pretty easy to mistake one of those for another one, I think, in a few of the cases. So that's irritating. At least the player card does have a little reminder, for the most part, of what those things do. This is a really helpful icon here, if you can see that. It's a bunch of question marks. But in general, you don't have to memorize what the tile effects are. It's just that they're very small, and sometimes it's hard to pick out from across the table what it is exactly that you are going to be buying. I don't know. This game's really good. It's really fun. I like to play it. We've played it a lot since I actually got it out and got to teach people the rules. Someone in the GeekList commented that this game needs a deluxe reprint, and I just couldn't agree more. With slightly larger, nicer tiles, a slightly clearer player aid. The player boards weren't made of like laminate something weird. I don't know. The components aren't super great. If they were better, maybe this game would be easier to get people to play, and it wouldn't have sat on my shelf for so long, and I would be a much happier person, and my quality of life would be greatly improved, because all along I could have been playing the Castles of Burgundy instead of playing things that aren't as good as the Castles of Burgundy. But I've got about a couple hundred other games, so maybe it wouldn't have affected me that much. That's Castles of Burgundy. I really like it. Of course I do. So does everybody. Not much else to say about it. Game number 8 is Harry Rhodan and the Cosmic League, from the Cosmos 2-player series and Z-Man Games and Comic Sans. This doesn't... There's that. That's there for real. So I got this because I do a lot of 2-player gaming, as I've mentioned. And the Cosmos 2-player games that I have been games that I really enjoyed. I've got Jumbo, Blue Moon, Kahuna, Targi, I guess counts. Maybe is it one? I don't know. I've got a lot of games from that series, and they've all been pretty solid. So I got this one because it looked really different from the other ones. It looked like it had like a pick up deliver feel to it, and it actually ended up feeling to me kind of a lot like Jumbo. But not as good as Jumbo. So I don't know about keeping this one. You're doing some similar stuff. So you're moving your ship from planet to planet, picking up goods, which need to be at another planet. You can pick up a bunch of a certain kind and put them in a hold. So all of the one suit of cards that you pick up can be stacked in one of your holds. But you can't add to that hold from then on, and you can't put multiple types of things in that hold, so there's like a little set collection-y bonusy thing there. And then when you drop them off, you flip the cards over, and maybe one of the cards goes out of the game, and so the number of goods that are even existing in the game is constantly like dwindling. You also have a bunch of technology and action cards that do a bunch of silly things, like let you jump through the sun, and then come out on the other side of the sun, which is the furthest from the sun, I guess. Or build orbital station that lets you not have to land on planets. You can just like fly by them and do stuff as though you landed on them and then fly around. I don't know. So there were just some things about this that didn't feel very satisfying to me. The dice for movement especially feels just... The number of times that you couldn't do anything very meaningful on your turn, because of that, seemed really high to me. And it might just be because I have terrible luck or something, although I don't know that I buy that. But there were times where you'd roll the dice and you wouldn't be able to get where you wanted to go. You could see, alright, if I'm able to get to that inner planet, I can drop off what I've got in my hold and I can pick up the whole set of things from there, and then I can go do something else, but I just need to roll like a 4 to do that. And then I'll roll the dice, and I roll like a 1 or a 2, and what I can do is like jump off of the planet and then like strand myself in orbit somewhere, if my opponent does something that messes up my plan, now I'm in some awful place. And I've just spent movement points to get out of there. And so I've been, like, 2 of my turns have been messed up by that roll. It seems like that kind of thing is kind of common in this game. So, I don't know. I don't feel like this game does enough different from some other games in the 2-player series. And certainly doesn't do enough better to justify keeping it or holding on to it in a collection that has those other games that I mentioned earlier. If I was a big fan of the theme, like, I guess this is a license. I don't know this license, but if I was a big fan of that, I might be more inclined to keep it. But the whole, I don't know, on the whole, it just feels kind of like a slightly watered down version of a lot of things that are already present in the other Cosmos games. Not a giant fan of it. That's Perry Rhodan and the Cosmic League. Alright, the next game on my list I bought because I have this thing where sometimes I go into a store and I don't want to leave the store unless I bought something. And this game was there, and it was the one that interested me the most, and it wasn't very expensive, so I bought it. And that game is Ginkgopolis. This game interested me at all because it's from one of the designers of Trois, a game that I like but don't get to play enough because either I'm terrible at teaching that game or the rulebook in that game is terrible, or both. And this game I didn't get to play for a while because either I am terrible at teaching this game or the rulebook for this game is terrible, or both. But this game is really, really cool. It is a pretty short, kind of filler-length city-building game where you are drafting cards to do one of 3 things. Expand the city outward, expand the city upward, or just use some building in the city to get resources. One of the reasons that this game is hard to teach from the rulebook is that one of the resources that you can get is called resources. So you have, as your resources, tiles, and victory points. And the tiles can help get you cards, and the cards can help get you resources of any of the 3 types of resources, including resources. So it's kind of hard to talk about this game using the words that come most readily to mind for me when describing stuff. So I've resorted to calling everything in the game stuff. So these cards can help you get stuff, either resources, tiles, or victory points. Anyway, you're kind of collaboratively building a deck in this game to keep track of what are the actionable pieces that are on the board. So you have some letters. I think you have 12 letter tiles that are these circles, and those are places where the city can be expanded into. And then you have the top tile of every stack in the city, which is the building that you will gain the use of should you build on top of that tile. And you have to ensure through some bookkeeping that all of the cards that represent those things are in the active pile, and that the cards that represent things that are no longer the face-up tiles or whatever on the board are either in front of players or in the inactive pile. And to do that, everybody has to remember every single time that they build anything to mark with one of these gray cylinders the fact that they did it, and then when you reset the deck for the next round, you take all of those cylinders off and get those cards from the inactive area and put them into the deck. And if you mess that up ever throughout the game, it is really hard to figure out, and it's really hard to fix it. So that is one thing that I do not like about this game. Another thing that I do not like about this game is that I cannot teach it. Someone can teach it, probably you can teach it, but I can't. It's hard for me. I have a disability regarding teaching this game in particular. And then the third thing that I don't like about this game is that the first time you play it, it will take twice as long as it's supposed to. But every other time that you play it, it will take exactly as long as it's supposed to, which is like 45 minutes to an hour, which, given the depth that's in this game, I don't know, it's a good, if you want to think about your gaming in terms of important decisions to length of time spent on one game, this one's got a lot of stuff stuffed into a pretty small time frame. So high value if you want to be optimizing that way. So yeah, I would definitely recommend grabbing this. There's an expansion that I don't know anything about at all, so I can't advise you one way or the other, but I definitely enjoy this game, and I think if you get a group of people that are willing to play it, a few times, it's a really rewarding experience got a lot of cool, elegant stuff in it that is maybe hard to grok at first, but once you get into the flow of the game, it's pretty simple to play and pretty quick to play it. So it's Ginkgopolis. Alright, so the 5th game on my list is Ninjato. Ninjato is billed as a worker placement game. It's got this silly, ridiculous tagline on it, which I only just now realized is in reference to the fact that the game is supposed to play in about an hour. It does not play in an hour, it plays a little bit longer than an hour. And this game is a really odd thing. So it is billed as a worker placement game, but it doesn't have really any blocking. When you put your guy somewhere, you're basically taking resources out of a space, and if there's no more resources of that kind there, then maybe you have blocked somebody, but in general, that's not really something that's happening. It's got a push your luck element in it that is sometimes very predictable, and you can really mitigate your luck by managing the cards that you have. And then sometimes it's not predictable at all because the elite guards are coming out and they just are, they just wreck you. They'll just wreck you and beat you up and take all your stuff. And then you're dealing with this envoy mechanic where you're trying to get influence of people in the different clans. And the oldest people are tiebreakers, but in general they're all worth 1 point. And you can sell them, you can bribe them, and you can bribe them as much as you want to score points. But you... Gosh, that's weird. There's a lot of really interconnected and really interesting decisions, and then like sometimes a card flips out and explodes you. So I'm not 100% sure if I would recommend this game. I like this game, and I know that some of the people that I've played this game with like this game. It does a lot of really interesting things, and there's a lot of cool decisions to make. Like, do I try to get a lot of envoys and not spend very much treasure on each of them, or should I just try to throw all my treasure at this one person and score it right away and get their card? I don't know. I really enjoy this game. I'm going to keep it and try to find the people that enjoy it as much as I do. But I know that a couple of people I've played it with were kind of turned off by the push your luck aspect here. Personally, I think a lot of Euro games could do with a little bit more uncertainty, although I can understand that, especially on a first playthrough, the elite guards in this game are extremely brutal. For example, basically in combat you're playing either lower or higher than the card that's currently showing. And that's like the guard of the house. So if the guard is a 3 and I want to sneak by him, I have to play something lower than a 3. If I want to beat him up, I have to play something higher than a 3. And so I can look at the cards in my hand and say, alright, I've got a lot of 1s and 2s, so I'm going to try to sneak by all the people in this house. First guy's a 3, I'll play a 2 and sneak by him. Second guy's a 2, I'll play a 1 and sneak by him. But an alarm has been sprung, and now an elite guard comes out, and he's a 0 if I try to sneak by him. Oh, well, maybe you should have used strength. No, he's a 5 if you try to beat him up, so you actually need at least 2 cards to beat him. The card itself, and either a 3 to modify that card, or a tile to modify that card. And it's just like, how could you have known that on the first play? Well, you really couldn't have. But when you start fighting the elite guards, maybe once you know what kinds are possible, you can look at your resources available and kind of evaluate your odds of being able to beat one. But on a first play, they seem extremely brutal, and I could see why that would turn people off. So, I don't know. Long story short, I'm keeping this. I like it a lot. You should play it before you buy it to see if that mechanic makes you angry or not. And if it does not make you angry, then you should buy it, and then you should come to my house, and we will have 2 copies of it, and we should play it twice, because I like it a lot. So, that's Ninjato. Alright, so, that's items 6 through 10 on my list of Tales from the Bottom Shelf. And we have the first couple of clunkers in here. Perry Rhodan and the Builders were games I didn't really enjoy too much. The Builders just felt like it was a mechanic in need of a game, and Perry Rhodan just had that roll and move shape in it, which I think, I don't know, it kind of, the other games in the Cosmos series I think are more fun for me, largely for that reason. But we also have 3 of my favorite games on this list so far in here. We have Castles of Burgundy, which I wholeheartedly recommend, despite the fact that it looks like dirt in a box. Ginkgopolis, which I most heartedly recommend, although it's got kind of a weird rulebook situation. and Ninjato, which I think you should try before you buy, but it will be hard to buy, I think, because I don't know if it is really very available anymore. Well, like, I'll check online after this and see if it's something that's still around. But it seems like it's kind of a polarizing game because it's got a decent amount of luck in it, despite being mostly a resource management, optimization-y, Euro-y kind of shape. Yeah, so just let me know if you guys are interested in these capsule reviews, or if you want to hear a little bit more of the story behind why I picked up these games. More in the spirit of the actual Geek List on Board Game Geek. Although for these games, I think the reason that I bought most of them is because I had money and I was in a store, which might be the reasoning behind maybe too many of the games on that list. So until next time, this is an even weirder move, and I haven't thought of a great way to end these videos yet, so I'm just gonna click stop.